Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. You have found yourself in a moment where, in your dwellings in cyberspace, you've come across the live stream of a human being out of 8 billion who is a Muslim futurist. I am Muslim because I believe truth. This world has a system admin and it's a simulation, and nothing in the simulation is equal to the truth beyond the simulation. I do believe this world has an owner, and that's the system admin beyond human conception. Therefore, we treat it as the higher power, or as simulated beings as the original power. So, and I'm a futurist because when I have looked at humans and looked at myself, I have realized everybody is making decisions, or in some sense technically working for their future self. Everybody's working for their future self, but they're they're living for their future sense of self, but they don't realize their sense of self is also dependent on the context. So it's like so many people are living as concepts right now, but they're irresponsible of the context where their sense of conceptual self arises. It's a matter of considering, because these are attributes I identify. I consider that there's an intelligence to this world beyond human form, and I consider that our greatest long-term future self is a return to the original state as simulated beings, to the original power, I should say, and to the system admin as users. And right now, our human consciousness in this moment on history is responsible for our future. Our free will is, in some sense, short-term future responding. See, guys, how do I say it? Tonight's lecture is all about me. If I end the sentence there, it's like narcissist. If I say it's all about me trying to explain reality in the most advanced way, how would that be? So I'm gonna tell you guys something, and this is something hilarious. You're gonna laugh. So in my childhood, because I wasn't a sad soul, you know, my shyness and introversion due to my own ignorance and inability, I was in some sort of self-exile. I had like the wrong view on myself, so I didn't trust myself, and then I didn't trust anybody. And it was this introversion shyness thing I lived through. But I want to tell you, it wasn't that, even though that was the case, it was like a barrier it was like some obstacle I couldn't surpass. And yet my emotions weren't dependent on the external, you know? And what I came to realize was an ability to move my mind faster than my body. Okay? The mind actually does move faster than the body, but I started to have a living relationship. At some point, I realized it's not just about analysis. So now when I am challenging myself to, in some sense, explain reality in the most advanced way, I am doing that with a sense of honor. I'm extracting honor from this by being like, all right, the cool thing about being a member of the human species and being alive in human history, being live streamed in human history, is that we have a chance to experience the human archetype. My dear species, the voice that you hear is the voice of 1 out of 8 billion variations of our species. We each have a different DNA, we each have a different objective, different conditioning. And so when it comes to trying to explain, first even trying to conceptualize the notion, okay, is it possible to even explain reality in the most advanced way? If the most advanced is beyond human conception, how can humanity explain it? Or what is the, where does the, what is the edge of the hypothesis, you know? And so at some point, it's very fascinating because I have been giving in these lectures kind of explaining my inner realms, my what I see behind my eyes in front of it. Like if you want to know, if anybody wants to know how to talk like me, do you know what I mean? I'm telling you, you're going to notice that I'm not following like this common sentence structure. And the reason is because I am seeing cinematic events behind my eyes, like as I'm talking to you. And all I have to do is let the mind that has moved faster and shown me a film, I just have to explain the film to you. So this might sound strange, but I am probably one of the rare human beings. This is not a sense of anything to do with ego. I'm just saying I think I'm one of those rare human beings. Like think about it this way. Imagine human beings are being born and they live their lifetimes. Now, for some strange reason in my lifetime, I've decided to explain. I don't know why. You know, I've kind of just this, it's like been this vibe of like, all right, this, it's like this feeling of trying to report back to the kind of more advanced human vision that for now is not consciously, doesn't consciously exist yet. You know, it's like wondering, is it, does our fascination with reality need to increase, and is how does it increase? And human beings are either motivated by happiness or they are motivated by fear. Fear and joy, they have in some sense been kind of, you know, guides of man's mind for ages. I find myself fascinated to exist right now. I find myself fascinated to be a human being with a unique DNA. And pretty much what I'm trying to say to you is that I am not just giving this lecture to you. This is just a sort of my expression in the presence of my Lord, which is Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. I am a human being, I am Muslim, I believe God is beyond conception in the same way an ant can't fathom what a human being is saying. I believe in the same way that human beings look at ants, we're being looked at. And we're within a sort of divine surveillance state, within a simulated testing zone. And you're not in this world to perhaps just understand it. It's kind of been designed to be impossible sometimes, in some ways. But at the same time, you're here to do something. And when I looked in the mirror, I was like, what am I looking at? And what I was looking at was a member of the human species. This whole time in our lives, let me tell you what you've been missing, folks. They've kind of divided and conquered all of us. That's kind of, and it's not their fault. It was like the best society could do with its nature. But let me tell you what human beings are missing right now. And if you hear this and you feel it's important, go share it. The whole point of it is the echo of the most important. Excuse me, echoing the most important. So, anyways, I'll say it this way. You find yourself alone with your own being, and if you have been either rejected or incapable of entering society, this doesn't mean there's a division. You know, I'm my whole thing is I'm that dude in history saying, guys, if you want to see what the future chess moves of the species is that first it's going to step out of nationalism, and species unity day is going to happen at some point. And when species unity day happens, we're going to identify as a species on Earth before we identify with national, cultural, ideological, linguistical, or personal programs. It is trying to, like, if I want to explain reality to you, whose reality am I explaining? God's reality, I do not have access. My own reality, I only have access. Your reality, you only have access. There's 8 billion human beings. There's like tons of conscious creatures on this planet. It is our responsibility as human beings to care for life, you know? It doesn't matter, at some point the human being's going to identify, like it's like yesterday, it's like today, like right now we're identifying as nations, right? We're going to identify as a united species. This means all these different nations are like different parts of one brain. Okay, it's just that, you know, we haven't had time travelers coming back to tell us, so we've had to discover it ourselves. What they haven't taught you is that they've conditioned you to only identify with the past. So present to past, that's what you think you are. And the past kind of is gone. If you look at it too long, you'll be like, why is my trauma looping? Yeah, because your attention's on the past. Look at the future. And so the thing is, they haven't taught you how to I extract value from your own awareness from present to future. For example, in my case, if somebody wants to give 10,000 talks, my past self would identify. If you ask me who are you, I'll be like, yo man, I'm someone who's given 2,400 talks, yay. You know, and they're gonna be like, yo man, how about your future self? I'll be like, my future self is gonna be like, yo man, there's 7,600 talks left. I'm going to be giving 7. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your emotions don't have to be based on how the past is defining the present. You know, it's not just the past. The past doesn't just need to be compared to the present. The present can just be compared to the future. Now, where I'm going with this is, so they haven't taught you how to be aware of your future self. That's one thing. Another thing they haven't taught you is that in every moment of your individual conscious life, you can be collectively conscious as well. That means you could be a human being anywhere and just realize you're a member of this species and suddenly have this emotion that your species matters, human life matters. You know, the ideas, genius ideas that human beings can generate matters. You know, for me, overpopulation doesn't exist. It was a bizarre argument from the beginning. You know, technology will allow us to live everywhere. At some point, AI is going to go inhabit planets and civilizations for us, and human beings are just going to be procreating. But the whole point of it is the maintenance. You see, what I've realized is an advanced civilization is not advanced if it destroys everything that was there before. So if you really want to know, so guys, the whole point of this is, I'm saying there's so many contexts that I could try to explain the reality of, but my effort is to be like, all right, I'm alive once, this moment is happening now once. Let me try to explain what I truly find is going on here. That's the thing. You're listening to one human being try to not explain to you, do you know, his just some sort of specific contextualized thing. I'm being like, yo, there's an unknown cosmic event happening. We are in this small portion of it. The average human being has like 7 octillion atoms. They say the whole cosmos has 10 to the power of 80, atoms in it. It's just a metric they're giving, but the whole point of it is that you have to ask yourself, why are you just conscious of your body? That means that when they ask you, who are you, why don't you say, I'm everything that I'm aware of in the moment? Why do you say, why do you identify with your body? Because your identity is primarily based on what you can control. And this is why it's not the ego's fault that it's like that. It's just a, bad habit that became character. That became part of evolutionary character. At some point, the human being has to be like, okay, the whole point of knowledge is to discover the limitations of mankind. And, at some point you begin to realize the story you were told was not the actual story. What's going on here is that the context, there's a hidden context to reality that mankind will never know. Or even if they know, it's based on God's mercy. Do you understand? There's a higher power here. After the prophets brought divinity, magic became old world, and magic was all about manipulation. And evil people are like, yo, man, why is it that when I'm evil, there's consequences? And the realization comes that sometimes the methodology is old world, but you're in a new world. And this doesn't mean that there's something like a new world order, because simultaneously the order can't exist without chaos. There's a new world chaos. The whole point of it is that we're on think of it this way. Before language, we were just, okay, we're on a planet in the middle of like somewhere that we began defining. When you realize, like, here's the most advanced way, let's say an attempt at trying to explain reality in the most advanced way, it's a massive storytelling project. It's like the intelligence of an individual entity on the planet is capable of looking at everything on the planet and giving it a subjective layer of meaning. So when we look at that object, it's a tree. When we look at that other object, it's a leaf. When we look at that other thing, it's a building. Do you know what I mean? So on some level, I'm trying to say that more than the human being is an identification with a specific state of mind. They've conditioned you. Like, another thing they didn't teach you was that they've trained you to identify as a noun, but you actually are a verb. So the greatest way to explain reality, like the attempt for that, like to truly do that, is to honestly not explain to you what it is anymore. I'm starting to realize that I have to dive into the experience, and it's not about trying to explain the inner realms vocally, but to truly see how advanced this moment can be. Excuse me. See, guys, the most advanced way is to realize that the human mind functions in duality, and the ultimate duality is simulation and truth. And it is true, human beings are simulated. I believe that so far in this lifetime, what I have realized about my own human experience is that, so technically I have lived around 12,000 days on this planet. That means there's 12,000 times I've logged in and I've been like, yo, another new day, another new self. So after all this time, I have come to the conclusion that how would I explain this world? And because it's not just you I'm explaining, my mind is playful. I imagine if every being across time and everything that God had created, and of course God is always hears everything, you know. So in some sense, what can I honestly, sincerely say about how deeply I've seen this? So this is my understanding that the narrative is too far in the sense that the way human beings that like so first of all they've checked in history and they're like, yo man, what unites human beings? They're like, yo, shared values. And they're like, okay, what's the best way to, share for shared values, to reach shared values? And the whole point of it is a narrative. So I fundamentally understand that every ideological system, in order to be humanized, has to translate into a story. And the way human beings translate reality into a story is the way they have been translated, where with the moment they were born, they were given a name, they were communicated to, and people behaved around them in certain ways that became their programming. So really, you have to be conscious as a human being and being like, okay, what's the point of it? So I realized there's so many viewpoints when if I want to be specific about reality. So it's obvious that specificity is not just, it may be required to notice the general, but on some level, like trying to find a specific solution to a changing world is very, it seems like, you know, there may be other approaches. And so for me, the view is that, okay, so the only reason right now I'm a human being that can communicate to other human beings is because my human biological intelligence is happening faster, okay, than the physical world around me. That means compared to how trees change, compared to how fast the ground changes, the human being can move all around, do so many different changes in position, but other things can't in this realm, and it's a blessing and mercy of the system admin of God. So right now we have to, anyways, where I'm going with this is the point of like, what do we have access to, right? And so you're looking at this awareness in a changing world. So you've entered this world room and you're going to leave it at some point. And when you look at what's happening in the world room, it's a changing world. It's just that we're changing a little bit faster. It's like our bodies are faster than the ground beneath our feet change, how fast compared to our changing faster than that changes. It's like the body is changing faster than the environment. The mind is changing faster than the body. The soul is in some sense an awareness to all these changes in an unknown way. Okay, let's say for now. To continue, I'm trying to share with my species this viewpoint that it's more than it's like trying to find the final equation or the final concept that explains it all. It's realizing if it's not a noun and it's a verb, and the whole cosmos is an unknown verb. It's like when you identify as a noun, you're a character in a story and your body is solid in the realm. But on some level, when you identify as a verb, you realize that your mind has not just been what your body has done. There has been so many ways that you have looked at life, regardless of how your body has been. Do you know how many times I've looked at the sky and I've wondered, like, how can I fly into it? Do you know, or if I was right now kind of like the Wright brothers task to kind of find a method of flight, could I? for me, one of the most like greatest romantic stories I've ever heard was the first inventor of like flight and floating technology, and the dude just takes his girlfriend there and like somehow activates the technology, and they're both in the air flying, and it's like that next level moment, you know what I mean? Where genius was ahead of its own failure. For me, the way I'm seeing reality is I'm saying, okay, there's my kind of personal interpretation, then it's like there's myself's view, and then there's the view of the species. So the view of the species is far superior. That means right now, imagine there's a view that it's like one human being, and now imagine 8 billion human beings, and now imagine 8 billion human beings. It's like in some sort of one presence of awareness. Do you know what that means? That means if you like think about how many problems you have in your life and multiply that by 8 billion. And if we solve these 8 billion problems, we build an advanced civilization automatically. What else can I say? So, if reality is a simulation, how do we get out of it? I believe that there's a higher power in this world, and at some point you're going to realize life is designed intentionally for equilibrium, never, not equilibrium. I don't know how to say it, but I wanted to say equilibrium never being found. But on some level, what I'm trying to say is that it's like the world is changing, we're changing. Intelligence is like how consciousness looks at how the world is changing and then makes a decision. They're like, yo, man, like, it's hilarious. This like atheist physicists go and freaking scold these like theologians. And the theologians like, all right, man, this is culture, bro, relax. And the atheists are like, savage, right? And the guy's like, God doesn't exist. It's like theoretical. It doesn't, do you know what I mean? It's abstract. You believe in an abstraction, buddy. Stop doing that. It's not healthy. And the atheist leaves. And then afterwards, the next day, the atheist grabs a coffee. Atheist physicist goes into his office. And it's like, all right, let's do some theoretical physics. It's funny because let me tell you, the search for truth, if it's emotional, it has to satisfy people. And it's like, yo, man, you can't satisfy 8 billion creatures who identify with their past. The only way we can build an advanced civilization, honestly, is if we become conscious of our future. The awareness to our future was the ability to adapt to our environment. The intelligence of the early human beings were like, yo, man, if I go there, the ground's going to fall. I'm not going to go there. Do you know what I mean? They visualize probabilities of events before the event happened. And right now, you might not think it's a big deal, right? But you are kind of, first of all, I mean, take this in. We're the most advanced species on Earth. Second, we don't know how advanced we are. Now, I'm telling you, I think it's kind of like a power. I think if I can imagine what I'm going to eat for lunch tomorrow, that's a power, yo. That's like some next level thing. Do you know what I mean? Where that means it's like, think of it this way. If I tell you what did you eat for lunch yesterday, like you're gonna instantly remember like the exact physical scene of it, right? Do you know? Also implying your mind hasn't like can still access the past. But what I'm saying is that it's all about the future. The future is like, I think, the staircase to God. Because the original truth doesn't really need us. It's very fascinating, the human position. So I'm saying, like, okay, I started off as a youthful person being like, yo, man, I'm a human being on Earth. Now, if you ask me, what are you? I'll be like, okay, man, take this in. The observable universe is a simulation. Do you know what I mean? Our galaxy is a certain simulation, and a simulation means it has a begin, start, and an end. So right now there's a universal simulation happening. Let's say a galactic simulation happening. There's a planetary simulation happening, and there's a biological human body simulation happening, and then there's a whole conscious simulation happening, like when you wake up and when you sleep, and even during that there's like dream states. So there's simulations of states of mind happening. You know, at the same time you begin to see that you're also living in a system society, and what society is pretty much how behaviors became invisible laws. Okay, and it's in, I don't know how, but it's some sort of coagulation, I guess, of preferences, right? So if somebody was like, Mr. Within, how do you explain culture? Simply, culture is pretty much like how a bunch of people behaved on a chunk of land. Do you know what I mean? Like, everybody relax. That's what culture is. Terrence McKenna got emotional. He's like, culture's not your friend, bro. Do you know what I mean? And what he meant, I think what really the implication of it is that culture is the best our ancestors could do. It's the first prototype. It doesn't mean it's perfect. Do you know what I mean? So cultures are like behavioral languages of nations or places. Do you know what I mean? And right now, how are human beings civilized and not everybody killing each other? Do you know what I mean? The reason is because there's invisible laws. Do you know what I mean? Human beings have no problem acknowledging invisible laws, right? I saw this video on YouTube. There was this guy, like this religious Christian gentleman. Do you know what I mean? And he was in this university campus, and some, like, young girl. Do you know what I mean? Like, came up to him, and he's like, "Why should I believe in God? Give me proof and evidence." And this dude looked at her and said, "Hey, when you go to the pharmacy and you get pills, do you go to the pharmacist, give me evidence exactly this is in the pill?" Do you know what I mean? And so give me exact evidence. And it's like, no, you act on faith. And the guy says that on some point it's like you got to have faith in reality, right? Do you know what I mean? But I mean, that's the main Abrahamic objective. But let me tell you this. The whole point of what I'm saying to you is that my view changed from it being a human being on Earth to right now, again, all these simulations, like from a cosmic simulation going to even, psychological simulation, physiological simulation, psychological simulation, emotional simulation. Do you know what I mean? Even communication is a simulation. Right now, the way what I'm doing is I'm simulating in silence and stillness, movement, and noise. I'm just doing it in a way, specific way that you can understand. Guys, I saw Squid Games recently, season 3, and Squid Games is a masterpiece. It has to win some Oscar or something. Like, if the Oscars are smart or something, they'll give it to them somehow. Do you know what I mean? Some sort of greatest title, like greatest award, has to be given to that show, because that show demonstrates, the acting demonstrates the psychology of chaos and fear, and the edge of, like, fear leading to the destruction of the ethical value system of the human being. And it was very fascinating to realize that, for me, the ideals are to some degree like a successful life was an honest life. A successful life was an honestly playful and smart life. And to some degree, for me, the greatest achievement possible, it's like the last thing I want to see before I leave this world room is to see how it advanced, like how it's like I'm waiting for, like, the species to go Super Saiyan, you know? So what is the most advanced way I can explain reality? And so I'm challenging myself. So at some point, guys, I'm going to go into my own zone here, deeper than before. So, how would I explain reality in the most advanced way? I would first be like, okay, how would I explain advancement? So, the most advanced, obviously, is that which has an ability beyond the world room. That's obvious. And because that's unknown, I don't go further to it. I'm not spiritual anymore. I'm religious. So, inside the world, what is the most advanced? So then I ask myself, okay, what is the world? And I realize it's a series of simulations that have aligned for this moment of consciousness to exist. So the point of it is like, yo, man, am I real? They're like, you're technically like a bunch of simulations happening at the same time for this moment to specifically exist like this for you to be aware. But, sure, let's call it real, you know. So what I'm saying is, technically, that's what's going on. And the rarity of human existence is not just how rare it is to happen, but just how rare its ability to be aware of itself is. For me to explain the most reality in the most advanced way, I must be able to fathom the most advanced. So the first answer to the question, to the possibility of this view, is that it's unfathomable beyond the world room. But in the world room, if somebody was like, what would be like paradise on earth or the most advanced human being on earth, how would it be? I would say it would be a human being that would realize, in order to be truly, to know itself as truly advanced, it has to first be in an advanced world. It's like the issue is we're all choosing to live comfortably at a time where we should be building something way more advanced and then being comfortable. Do you know? There's this story my mother told me and my twin brother when we were young. And she said that there's this story, I don't know exactly how it went, but it was like some fable. And it was like there was this ant and this grasshopper who were friends. And the grasshopper was very egotistical, narcissist, you know, kind of carefree, not narcissist, but just carefree and just too relaxed and, didn't care about anything, just in the here and now, you know. And so the ant would always be working and seeing the grasshopper, and the grasshopper was always sitting on some leaf just relaxing in the sun. Do you know? And the grasshopper would be like, I don't know how it went, guys, but the way I animated it was like this. The grasshopper's like, ant, what are you doing, man? Why are you working so hard? You're missing out on the beauty of the presence of the moment in the cosmos. And the ant's like, yeah, no, man, I love that too. But it's like, I'm conscious of the future. It's like winter's going to come soon. We got to, do something. And the grasshopper's like, bro, winter, it doesn't matter. We think of a solution then. And the ant is like, no, man, there's work to be done. We cannot forget the future just because the present is nice, you know. But the grasshopper's like, nah, man, no. It's like, this sun is divine. I'm going to stay in the sun. And so winter comes, and one day the ant is not there, and the grasshopper is freezing. And the grasshopper kind of like, follows the trail somehow, let's say, or kind of somehow, knows from before where the ants are, right? And he follows and goes to the place of the ants, and, he calls upon his friend. The kingdom of the ants are like, what do you want? You know? So the grasshopper, I think it was way more arrogant in the story. Well, anyways, whatever. But the grasshopper comes to the door and says, "Ants, let me kind of like have shelter from this blizzard or something." And the ant is like, "All right, man, come in, but I think you've learned your lesson." The moral of the story is that to be conscious of the future is an incredible privilege of your human intelligence. So the most advanced way for me to explain reality is that reality is an ability for a conscious, unknown conscious agent, perhaps even unknowable conscious agent, to in some sense recognize where it exactly is, what are the powers at bay, what is the presence of the true levels of intelligence to this universal sector. Right now, you're a human being on Earth, and you identify with the specificity of your past and the specificity of what society tells you now. The one sector you have not confronted is the future. And to be honest, the future is more and more becoming like a verb. Right now, the human mind does move faster than the body. The information age and technological, let's say, exponential growth, it's all leading us to a point where human beings are going to be incapable of making mistakes in the future because the technology is too advanced. Like AI, there's going to be Jarvises in the future for everybody, and they're going to not make mistakes. And right now, any human being that makes mistakes is making history. But the whole point of it is not to intentionally make mistakes; it's to learn from them the first time they happen, and never repeat. The whole point of it all is to ask yourself as a human being, while you're here, what is the most important value? For me, I'm like, I ask myself, if, like, think of it this way, if I wanted to make an omelet, I call this the advancement principle. You know, if I wanted to make an omelet right now, there's somebody in Japan who like can make it way more advanced than me. Because I know this, it doesn't mean I can make the most advanced, but it means the most advanced is possible. Something more advanced is possible. Right? So the whole point of it is in every moment of your life, a more advanced version of you is always possible. It's either you're being it or it's in the blind spots. People are like, "Yo, man, where, like, how do I kind of, become conscious of the blind spots of, right now of my human consciousness?" And I'll be like, it's to realize it's the edge of your knowledge. When you become more fascinated by the unknown than the known, when you become more fascinated by what you don't know compared to what you know, and you have the courage to realize that what you have been so far is honestly a limited, it's a simulation. It is just a simulation. It's a node that's where a bunch of simulations are connecting. For me, the most like, honestly, it's going even beyond me explaining it. Let me just try to take you to how I see how advanced this world of ours can be. See, let's playfully consider it as levels. So I have looked at this world and I've come to this conclusion. Four levels. We right now on the species are in still level one. There's four levels on this. Imagine Earth is a game, and instead of 2D pixels, it's 3D particles, periodic table. And we log in and log out, wake up and sleep. So the whole point of it is human awareness and the ability to realize how advanced the world would be. And on some level, how do I say it? Conscious awareness is an opportunity to see how advanced you can be as a being. Level one is about the self. Your whole life, if you notice, and most people's lives, it's a self-obsession. Of course, it has to be because we have to survive and repeat certain actions to take care of ourselves as beings. But at the same time, it's kind of like systemic. That means there's a system here. To be conscious of the systems is to realize every concept has a context it animates through. For me, it's like this. It's like a bunch of simulations have created an opportunity for there to be an ability to identify all the simulations as an individual moment. And so right now what I am, because the conditioning of the human species, the civilization we live in, I term it civilization 1.0. And regardless of the awe of the fascination of like time travel and all that, I'm just saying like we have to just wonder about the ability of man's mind to truly envision the future. Okay, and to give you the most advanced, explain reality in the most advanced way, that means I have to see the most as far as I can into the future and explain that to you. And it for me to see as far into the future, it all depends on how 8 billion humans. It's like I have to visualize, what's how 8 billion human beings are going to decide. And the consequences of all those minds, all those sectors of reality, even the sectors of the mind of the species. Truly, I believe a great human, it's like we are the human kingdom, but nobody wears the crown, the future generations do. So it's an opportunity to to have an original awareness to the simulated world and to live originally. Do you know what I mean? I believe theologically the sin Adam and Eve did were that they listened to a simulated entity and they forgot the original. And then their descendants were cast to a simulated realm. And so their challenge is to realize that the whole world is simulated and there's only one original awareness. That means how you get out of this simulation, if you want the most advanced view, we're like souls inside a simulation, right? Automatically at the end of our lives, we leave the simulation, but that's, divinely administered. But when it comes to our own lives, it's about how your awareness noticed that this world, not only its design is too unique, but that the only way out of this simulation is through the mercy of the system admin. Connect with the system admin first. That means first aim for the final civilization, let's say Jannat al-Firdaus, heaven, and the final heaven. And the final heaven is the final advanced civilization. Is yeah. And then we have to be like, all right, how do we build the most advanced civilization on Earth? How do we build paradise on Earth? And the most advanced civilization would not just be conscious of the human being, would not be conscious of all creatures on the planet, would be conscious in some sense of its own capability and ability to realize that the presence of all souls in the world is the awareness to how the future can occur with much more organized clarity. The whole point of it is once we step out of this our own simulation, imagine anytime you have a problem, you're inside a simulation. Okay, and you have to get out of that simulation. And so in some sense, let's say you solve the problems, level one, the self, level two is the species. So once you've solved all your own problems, then you have the problems of the species to deal with. Once we've solved all the problems of the species, we have the problems of the world to deal with. Once we've solved all the problems of the world, we have the problem of what is the most advanced way that human species can be aware of the system admin. We want to build an advanced civilization. We want to go as far as we can, and we want to treat the past with the respect of its archival value. For me, it's honestly about taking care of everything, and being like genius in a world, in this world, means an infinite win-win strategy. Win-win to the power of infinity. For me, I'm like chaos. That means the narrative is that we're gonna die, we're gonna end. The system admin at some point will guide us beyond this realm, guide the soul beyond this realm. It's like life for me is no longer an intellectual analysis. It's trying to figure out what is the divine command of my soul. What is the original divine command my soul has been given? To explain to you the most advanced reality, obviously it's a reality where there are no limitations. But we find ourselves in a world where there is limitations. So what do we do in a world of limitations? We accept our limitations and wonder what then the greatest strategy is. For me, I've realized as long as I can find space, I can recalibrate. Right now, you don't know what it feels like giving this lecture. It feels like I'm like one of those souls raised by kind of like, you know, unfortunately smoking outside, like, out of windows late at night, and or on balconies, and it's unfortunate. It's a path. The best time to quit smoking is before you ever smoke your first cigarette. It's a waste of time. It's like a wrong room to enter. But what I'm trying to tell you is that my soul has one of the things that really fascinates me is is called the liminal, Liminal. Liminal means rare moments. Imagine like it's snowing and the orange street lamp, and there's like snow underneath the street lamp, and everything is dark, and you're staring out of a window and the window is cold. Like that's a liminal moment, Strangely, when I went to China, I went there to Canton Fair, and when I went to China at night, Chinese architecture is very liminal. This is going to be a strange statement, but somehow China is very beautiful at night. But it does. What I'm saying is, it's the advancement of 8 billion human beings right now from selfism, which identifies with nationalism, and we need to, in some sense, have nationalism identify with speciesism. Speciesism means, yo, man, your beliefs and every ideology pretty much past persona and pride, all of this is kind of like drop these and you have just a member of the human species. We have to have this mentality. All right, everybody, don't panic and just care for the human species. If you see a human around you, realize it's a member of the human species, and the point of it is we all advance. And in all arguments or conflicts, try to wonder about what is not being seen. The patience to go forth, the ability to in some sense be like, yo, the system admin created us with the intention, with great intention. The system admin created humanity the soul, the human, and presented it in front of all of creation, and all creation bowed. Almost all creation bowed. And now man is being tested to see why creation bowed to God's design. They all bowed to God. They didn't bow to man, but they bowed to God's greatness in design. So we are a great design, and now the moment has come where all of our souls are here to truly show how great really the system admin is. Our ability to access original energy, the original power of the moment, to realize that our ego is trying to act like God, but our ego can never be God. The information processor that we consider to be the brain is limited, as beautiful as it is, but it's limited. So right now, we as human beings have to have multiple strategies, in some sense, unite the species, have the greatest minds unite. The era of hidden genius ends and the unhidden greatness of man begins. Right now, you don't understand. You're alive in the most fascinating time. You're legit seeing the engines of an advanced civilization begin to, in some sense, like slowly, kind of like we're hearing their noises. In another lecture, I said it's the songs of the advanced civilization. The most advanced explanation of reality. You're in a changing world. It's going forward. Somehow, this whole time, for a long time, it was unconsciously happening. Now it's strangely consciously happening. We have to use our consciousness before we die. And the way we use it is before we leave this world room. And the way we use it is wondering about what is the great genius vision that we see, that specifically our unique DNA sees. What do we see that if we could share with the species could advance it? I'm telling you, put the word advance in front of everything, and wonder about the future, the greatness of the human species' legacy. Live for that and you'll be fascinated. It's like there's been, the honor of it has been here and we've been denied it. They made you identify with a noun based on the past, and your present is like, yo man, why am I so emotional? Because you have to decide where you stand. Why do you think I say I'm a futurist? The future is where everything is going. The awareness to the future means, in the same way you can remember memories, you can visualize probabilities to how the moment will happen. It is now that point where the competence of the species is being tested, the true ability of the human species in the presence of the world, in the presence of all that is. Now is the moment. And my whole vision is, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know that if I have been able to envision an advanced civilization and probabilities, like even you can say basically if anybody can visualize a flying car, right? You can visualize something ahead that can exist but doesn't exist now. So you have that ability. So you have to realize, train your ability to wonder about the future and wonder about the nature of your mind. And because you have a unique DNA, strangely, no one else can be a better teacher than your own sincere acknowledgement of your own self. It's like wonder about. It's like every person's DNA is a suggestion. They're a unique instrument. And before you leave this world room, you have to, in some sense, hear the greatest way. You can, in some sense, be part of this great symphony of manifestation. So anyways, guys, there's many ways we can talk about it, but the most advanced way to explain reality is that an original power simulated a world. We are right now in that world. There's moderators. They are simulated beings created by the system admin. They have certain authority over the simulation, but they are not God, and you should go directly to the system admin. As an employee, go directly to speak to the owner of the company rather than the manager. If the manager is like, leading to inefficiency. So the whole point of it is, we are an opportunity for intelligence to activate in the human format. And I am truly fascinated by how great our species can be. You know what I mean? A united species is, you don't understand how brilliant it is. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I hope this episode was, intriguing. And it's all for the greatness of what will happen. Truth doesn't have a beginning and ending. Since we do, it's kind of like where the effect of this or simulated effect of this original cause, the simulation has nowhere else to return other than the original. And once it returns to the original, it in some sense meets the system admin. At some point on Earth, we have to wonder about the greatest strategy of 8 billion human beings. And their greatest strategy is immediately to unite into over a narrative. For years I was thinking what that narrative should be, and I discovered it should just be the species, something everybody has access to. That means when you look in the mirror, that's your membership into the human species. You don't understand. And now we have to, the human species is now requires to live consciously. So think of it this way: the more 8 billion human beings live consciously, the more we're seeing how a conscious species would behave. A conscious species would be considerate, of the consequences before it decides, to be aware of various results, to just be fascinated by hidden genius angles that are everywhere in every moment. And all of it lead, it's as if it's like, where does all of knowledge lead? It roots back to the deep mystery that beyond human ability and conceptualization and contextualization and whatever, beyond human limitations, the limitless exists. We are in the presence of the original limitless power of reality. We are not just simple users, we're not NPCs, we are users that have the system admin privilege. In Islam, in the Holy Quran, I'm a visual learner, but there's this imagery that humanity is a vicegerent. The human soul is like a vicegerent. That means it's an ambassador of the divine attributes of the system admin. It's here to show the all reality, the magnificence of the original design of the system admin. The greatness of our species is our destiny. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.